Welcome back. Let's get into the new development out of Michigan. Two Republicans on the Wayne County Board of Canvassers blocked formal approval to certify the vote, claiming major discrepancies in the process. Watch.
The numbers have not improved. It's still 71% out of balance.
I believe that we do not have complete and accurate information in those poll books.
But an abrupt about-face, Michigan's largest county unanimously certified the election results last night, showing an overwhelming vote in favor of Joe Biden. But what happened to those two GOP board members? Their objection only stood for about 3 hours, so why did they change their minds? Were they forced to? Was there coercion? What happened here? Listen to what some Democrat residents and so-called election experts had to say to them during a public online meeting last night.
Shame on you. Shame on you for leading to this level of corruption.
The law isn't on your side. History won't be on your side. Your conscience will not be on your side.
It has been made very clear here tonight that there was an agenda from the both of you. And I hope that the both of you go home tonight and read up on systemic racism, because what the both of you are doing right now is adding to systemic racism.
I'd be curious to know what that explanation is. Anyway, let's bring in someone at the forefront of this legal fight. Trump 2020 legal team member Joe Digenova. Joe, what's going on here, man? Let's talk first about Michigan. What's happening?
Well, it isn't very clear what happened. We are told first that an auto pen was used to sign the two electors' signatures. We are then told that that isn't what happened. Then we were told that their signatures were forged. Now we're told that didn't happen. We're waiting to find out precisely what happened on the ground with the people who were there to certify the election. And we're in communication with people on the ground and with Michigan, and Ronna McDaniel is in charge of that, and we're waiting to hear from her.
Now, the president tweeted out, the numbers have not improved. It's still 71% out of balance, stated Wayne County, Michigan canvassers. There are widespread irregularities in poll numbers. There are more votes than people. The two harassed Patriot canvassers refused to sign the papers. Now, we spoke a little bit about the signing, and as you said, still finding out exactly what happened there. But can you speak to this more votes than people? Is this verified? Is this an allegation? And where do we stand with that specific? Because that seems like something we could prove one way or the other.
It's being looked into on the ground by our lawyers who were there with Ronna McDaniel, and they are ascertaining through statistical analysis whether or not the numbers make sense historically and currently. It's being looked into. As you know, Bucks, in a situation like this, this is basically a fast-moving street scene. The purpose of the Democratic Party has been to ram this election through, to delay it at first so they could find out how many votes they needed, and then ram through to the finish line without an opportunity to be heard. And that's exactly what you see going on in Wayne County with these outrageous allegations that people exercising their right not to certify an election are somehow racist. This is what the Democratic Party has become to: smears, allegations, and nonsense. What we need to do are get the facts. That's being worked on the ground right now, and we'll see what happens. Statistically, the numbers don't make any sense, and there are numbers crunchers and statisticians doing exactly that, so that if it becomes necessary to litigate the question, we'll have statistical support.
Can you just bring us up to speed, Joe, on the primary? I know there's a lot of states, and you and the legal team are working crazy hours and trying to get all this stuff presented before these judges, especially before the media can just declare who the president is. I know they've already declared it, but try to make this a fait accompli. What are the primary challenges before the court in Michigan?
Well, the Michigan cases, and that involves actions involving deprivation, the dilution of the right to vote of Republican voters, people who voted for Trump. That may even be Democrats who voted for Trump. The idea is that they were systematically excluded from observing the vote count. They were systematically prevented from observing, which they are permitted to do, required to do under Michigan law. They were not allowed to get close enough to see the ballots being taken out of the envelopes. These are the mail-in, mail-out, and absentee ballots, so that they could see if the signature matched, There was a date stamp from the post office, whether or not it was properly sealed and open. All of that was prevented, and that happened to Republicans only. Republicans were not permitted to be inside the area close enough to be able to observe under the law, which is what they're required to do. Now, all the people opening the ballots were Democrats. So there wasn't any question that the Democrats were present. So Republicans were denied equal access to the ability to observe. That's the key thing. And therefore, it's a denial of equal protection. It's a denial of due process, which is exactly what Bush v. Gore was done. Now, in other parts of Michigan, that didn't happen, and people were allowed to observe. So the question is, why weren't they allowed to observe in Wayne County and Detroit? And the answer to us is pretty simple, that people didn't want to see what was going on. Because as you know, when the vote tally stopped on election night, everything shut down in about 6 states around the country. Interestingly enough, the same time, all the vote counting stopped. Now, why was that? We theorize, and we are alleging, that it was done so they could figure out how many votes they needed to win and then bring those in truckloads in envelopes filled with ballots, some with only 1 vote for Biden, just a whole bunch of ballots that would say Biden, Biden, no down ballot votes at all. Why? Because you can fill out a ballot real fast with a vote for the president and not have to waste your time on the bottom. And so that's what we're alleging: denial of equal protection, denial of due process, violating of the observation statutes, and basically saying that all of those votes, which were never observed and should be thrown out. In addition, there needs to be an investigation of where those ballots came from that nobody ever got a chance to see.
Is there a precedent, Joe, for if you prove this point in the court, if to the court's satisfaction, let's say, the Trump campaign's legal team shows that there was a systematic effort to prevent the ability to observe these ballots being counted, as you've pointed out, is there precedent for the judge just casting aside those ballots then? What is the mechanism and what is the ask from the legal team in layman's terms? If in fact that allegation is true, then what?
To throw out all the ballots that came in after a certain time. In other words, all of them, no matter who got them, whether it's Trump or Biden, all of those ballots that came in after the vote counting stopped late at night and then continued the next day, all those votes in envelopes that were brought in must be excluded. And the reason for that is simple. Once the ballot is removed from the envelope, you can never go back and determine whether or not it is a verifiable vote. So therefore, if you can't do that, then your vote is being diluted. In other words, the people who voted earlier. So the only remedy, there is no other remedy, the only remedy that makes you whole as a voter is having all of those ballots, which were never observed under the law, excluded from the count.
Joe, are we going to see proof of fraud presented in court in the days ahead?
We are going to see proof of misconduct. We are going to see proof of irregular activities. We are going to see proof of everything under the sun. There are hundreds and hundreds of affidavits by observers, by poll watchers, by Democrats, by Republicans, by all sorts of people and independents, people who went in to vote and couldn't do it, people who went in to vote and found that, quote, they had already voted when in fact they hadn't. That was part of a scheme in some jurisdictions where when they needed a name to put on a false ballot, they simply picked somebody from the registry, put their name on the ballot, and put it in. That same person then came in to vote, and they discovered that they had already voted when in fact they hadn't. So the answer is, yes, we're going to see all of that.
Joe Digenova, everybody. Joe, really appreciate your expertise on this one and all your work, sir. Thanks so much, and good luck to you.
Thank you, Buck.
Hey, Team Buck, just want to say thanks so much for watching The First on YouTube. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more great content from The First, please click that subscribe button.